It's time for the Traci Shoblom Show.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm keeping my voice low because I'm sitting outside on my porch in front of my son's window. And he's probably sleeping in there, would be my guess. One can never tell with a 16-year-old boy, right? But this is Traci Shoblom, and you have found the Traci Shoblom Show yet again. I'm sitting on my porch. It is Easter Sunday in the year 2020. And it's really a neat day. Like the rain's gently falling. It's like a more of kind of a mist or a drizzle, and I cannot see the foothills of the San Gabriel Mountains as I sit on my porch in Glendora, California, a tiny little town that is nestled in those very same foothills. I have a client who, it's a colleague, and she lives an hour outside of New York City. And she's like, yes, I live, out in the country, an hour outside of New York City. And where do you live? And I was like, oh yeah, I live an hour outside of LA. So I'm still in LA. And that's the thing. LA is so spread out that you can literally drive for an hour and a half and still be in LA. So anyway, today, being Easter Sunday, I'm not a religious person, and I'm not Christian. So Easter is not a big celebratory day for me, but I was raised Christian. And one of the carryovers, it's also the middle of Passover, by the way, one of the carryovers from Easter, as well as Passover, is some of the concepts that can be applied to every area of our lives, whether we are religious or not. And that is the concept of both renewal, the concept of freedom, and the concept of breaking free from bondage. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about today, not in a heavy, let my people go kind of way, but more in a way to get you sort of reflecting. Because as I've repeatedly said on the blogs the last few times, or podcasts the last few times, this is a really incredible opportunity for us to really reflect and think about our lives and think about our relationships and think about what we want to do when we emerge from this time. I watched a very, very cool YouTube special last night it was an online Passover Seder with some notable, Jews, and it was incredibly well produced, and there was music, and actor Richard Kind and Deborah Messing gave a really good sort of illustration of a biblical story where, the parting of the Red Sea kind of thing. And I was extraordinarily moved by this because he was telling the story of the Exodus and, these people, and they were fleeing, and, they come upon the ocean, the Red Sea, coming below, coming behind, and then there's nowhere you can go forward, and you're being encroached on by every side, and then all of a sudden the sea opens and you're able to go through on the other side, and just as you get to safety, it crashes back down again, and everything that you knew before is on the other side of this massive ocean. And that's kind of a lot like what we're going through right now. It is mind-boggling to think that we are all, most of us, cooped up in our houses around the world. It's not, a neighborhood or a city or even a country. It's not a particular religious group. It's not a political group. It's not a racial group. It's everybody. And we're all at home. And we're all looking at the smallest microcosm of our lives, which is our home and our family. It's, our homes and our families are the cells upon which the fabric of our society are built. And so we're having to go back to this sort of cellular level and be like, all right, what in my life is working, what in my life isn't? Because no matter when the restrictions are lifted, whether it's in 2 weeks or whether it's in a year, the world as we know it has changed forever. It just has. There's no way to really anticipate the ramifications and reverberations of what we're all going through right now. And that's okay. We don't have to know. because we can't control what our government does. We can't control what the virus does. We can't control a lot of things. But what we can control is us and our thoughts and our opportunity for reflection and the changes that we make. So many of you know that my life partner, my boyfriend, my sweetheart, my main man, my main squeeze, is a management professor. And he spent his entire life teaching in business schools. Well, not his entire life, but his entire academic career teaching in business schools. And he does this exercise that I really, really like. He calls it the Rip Van Winkle Exercise. Now, I'm going to modify it a little bit because when he does it with his students, they're all usually graduating seniors. And he has them do two exercises. He has them project out 10 years to the day what life is like. And for us, for our purposes, 10 years is impossibly too long. It's, who can even imagine what life is going to be like on Easter Sunday in the year 2030? It's not really conceivable. But we can do it for Easter Sunday in the year 2021. Because it's very likely that some form of normalcy will have emerged, whatever that looks like. And so what I encourage you to do, and I'm going to do, and if you're my client, I'm going to ask you to do, is take a look at, basically take a piece of paper and write down the date. I forget what today's date is. It's April maybe 11th or 12th or whatever it is. It's Easter Sunday in the year 2020. So now imagine that it's exactly 1 year from now, and you're sitting in your life and you're looking back on the year. And you're looking back and you're like, wow, okay, so on April, whatever it is, Easter Sunday of the year 2020, this is what I was doing. This is what my life was like. These were the things that bothered me. These were the concerns I had. And now look at where I am. And write out what you want your life to look like. How do you want to feel? How do you want to look? What do your relationships look like? What is your work? I mean, we have an opportunity to reinvent just about everything. What are your relationships like with your family? What changes do you want to make? Have you made in the year? So it was like you look back and you're like, wow, everything that I'm looking around in my life today that's this started on that day, on that Easter Sunday in 2020 when I made some changes. Okay. So create in your mind, what does it look like? I've got, friends and clients and, they're not satisfied with their personal relationships. And they're like, wow, I've been settling for far less than I deserve. Okay, well then in a year, what does that look like? Who are you with? What is that person like? Or people who, who are not happy with their work. Okay, so in a year, and resist the temptation, by the way, to mentally come up with obstacles. To be like, well, yeah, sure, I'd love to be, a fighter pilot, but I can't do that in a year. That's not the point. The point is that in a year you could be in fighter pilot school or whatever you do. Okay. So, here I am, it's a year later and I'm in fighter pilot school. All right. So come up with what you could do in the next year and think to yourself, what in my life needs to change? Under what circumstances could that reality come true? If you're frustrated with being out of money all the time, then a year from now, be like, wow, that whole coronavirus thing really was the turning point for me. That was the time when I decided, you know what, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to make a change. And then think to yourself, okay, well, what changes need to be made? All right. He calls it the Rip Van Winkle effect. And it's a very powerful way of stepping outside the current circumstance and looking at what do you want to put in your life? Okay, and it cycles back to the thing that we were talking about in the beginning about rebirth and freedom, because that's why Easter is so important. It's not about, bunnies hiding stuff in the yard. It's not about history. It's about the spiritual significance of rebirth and the fact that you can always rise again. You can always get yourself out of bondage, even when you're standing in front of the Red Sea and it doesn't even look at all like there's any path through. All right. There is. Just believe that there is, and stand there and wait for the opening. And then when it does, you're ready to go. You know, the old saying, you know, what is it? Luck is where preparation meets opportunity. Okay. If you want to be lucky, then get prepared and wait for the opportunity. Because for many of us, that's what this is. This whole, we're staying home and not going out, we're all grounded. This is our chance. I've seen all over the internet, there's an ad on Facebook where it's like, I think they call it the prison workout or something. And it's like all these people getting super buff without going to the gym. You know, my clients are losing weight without, you know, going out to restaurants, without, you know, having diet plans, food, you know, put in. They're losing weight in their home. They're getting fit in their home. You can learn a language. You can study and get prepared for a new job. You can learn to cook. All right. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty right now and a lot of things we can't control, but there are some things you can control. So do that Rip Van Winkle exercise and find out what you want and how you can get there. Okay? I hope everyone has a delightful day. One thing I'm doing is I am reinstating, or actually instating, Sunday dinners, Sunday family dinners. So I have some food defrosting. Some of it, I'm vegan, so I don't eat certain things, but my people do. So I'm making dinner, and I'm going to see if my oldest wants to FaceTime in and, you know, see if the boyfriend wants to FaceTime in, or we can Zoom in, or whatever the technology. But I think I'm going to start those family dinners. I've always wanted to do it. So like a year from now, I'm going to be like, wow, look at us. Here we are. It's Sunday night, and we're all here, and we're having dinner. And it all started on that Easter Sunday in 2020 when I was like, you know what? Family matters to me. Family matters. There's no better time. I'm eventually going to have grandchildren, and I'm going to want to create that sort of life that I've always wanted. So now's the day that I start. And I encourage you guys to do the same thing. It doesn't have to be massive, monumental life change. It's just little things. All right. Like, subscribe, comment, pass this beautiful, amazingly wise, deeply profound podcast on to your friends, your family, your enemies, the people you don't like. Feel like you need to listen to her. All right. I'm giving myself a round of applause. Actually, I wonder what this one is, the cheering. Let's try this one. Let's see what this... There's all these like little pre-loaded laughters and clapping. So we're going to try this one. But have a wonderful day, everybody. I'll talk to you soon. It is the Traci Shoblom Show. I have no idea what that sounds like.